Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Camilla. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made Momo's hero uniform from the anime My Hero Academia. To begin, I'm going to be marking my leotard pattern on thick 4-way stretch fabric as my lining layer. I just repurposed my Sailor Moon leotard pattern I had purchased from Momo KARUMI'S Etsy shop, which I can link below. I marked my pattern along a fold and cut. This gave me a pattern piece with exact dimensions on each side. I repeated this process and ended up with the front and back of my leotard. Next, I did the same exact process with my burgundy 4-way stretch pleather material I had purchased online, which I can link below as well. I must say, I'm a huge fan of the color and feeling of this material, and I think I'll be using it in the future for any costumes I've got planned using that color. Alright, so you'll end up with 4 pattern pieces from which you layer the lining and outer fabric on top of each other. Next, I pinned them so they stayed in place and repeated this for my other 2 lining and outer fabric pieces. Next, I placed the right sides facing each other and pinned up the sides and the tops of the shoulders. Okay, so next I sewed up the sides and the tops of my shoulders with a zigzag stitch. Next, I pinned up the raw edge for my leg holes and sewed up this edge on my sewing machine. Afterwards, keeping right sides facing each other, I sewed the crotch seam straight through. Here I cut a straight line down from the collar, which I measured by trying the leotard on and marking just above my belly button. Next, I took off the costume and free-handed an extremely long upside-down diamond, the tip of which measuring 1 inch below where I finished the original cut. Next, I carefully slit an angled cut meeting each point of the diamond. I hemmed the cut following the shape of the edge of the diamond as a guideline. After carefully sewing, here is my finished front piece. I really loved how my cosplay was turning out. Okay, so here is me self-consciously trying it on for the first time. I really wasn't used to wearing something that revealing, but I got used to it, especially at the con when I got loads of confidence boosters from friends and people I was meeting. Here I'm marking the white and red trim she has on her hips using a water-soluble disappearing ink pen. If you can't find one, just use a white colored pencil. Here are my marks after I was finished. I cut the L shapes out using 4-way stretch fabric and pinned a lot. This was really tedious and was my least favorite part of the whole process, but it turned out to be pretty good at the end. I sewed up the slash and pinned it to my leotard. Next, I sewed it to my outfit using my sewing machine. Here I am demonstrating how I'm making the sleeves. I modified Cosmic Koteri's Sailor Fuku method for my needed dimensions, which I can link below. Basically, using white 4-way stretch fabric and using an extra thick cotton interfacing, I cut out a rectangle measuring a few inches greater than the length of the circumference of my armhole. Next, I placed the white fabric rectangle on top and folded this down the middle, creating a fabric taco with the white fabric on the exterior. Then I pinned an arc shape that gets widest in the center and comes to a point on the top and bottom. The widest point in the center should measure roughly 3 inches. I'm going to sew where I've pinned. Then I will sew a stitch directly in between. This creates 2 puffs that match her costume quite accurately, I think. I will cut out what I just sewed with about 1/2 inch of seam allowance because the sleeve is pretty bulky and it's difficult to sew up at times. Then I pin it to place on the armhole. Afterwards, just sew it to the leotard and cut off the excess. And admire her handiwork because that was probably a huge pain. Here I am creating her chest strap that admittedly offers no support during actual use, but I think you could tough it up with some stretch elastic. I just kept it simple, with the same cotton interfacing I had used for the sleeves. I cut out a rectangle of tan 4-way stretch fabric. I folded the tan material in half and sewed up the length. Then I flipped it inside out and stuffed the cotton rectangle through. I followed the same protocol for Momo's skirt thing she wears, using some 1-inch thick white foam I had left over from another project. I cut a rectangle 11 inches wide and the length is a bit more than the circumference of my hips. I used the same tan 4-way stretch material, cut out 2 rectangles the same dimensions as the foam. After, I sewed up the lengths and flipped it inside out. Then I stuffed the white foam through the opening at the end. Here's how it looks. I think it has very similar dimensions to hers. Next, I am marking the indentations her skirt has with a ruler and a water-soluble ink pen. I'm going to use a long straight stitch to create the indentations on her skirt. Then I'm going to sew straight up the width 5 times and once down the entire length in the middle, which you will see will create her puffing patterns. I was digging the end result. I was almost done, but lastly I always leave the collar because they're pretty quick. I followed the similar sandwiching method I used earlier. Cut out a piece of 2mm EVA foam and sandwiched it between 2 layers of that fancy fabric material. Except this time, I left the entire bottom length open and sewed the widths closed. When you flip it inside out, this creates a nice simple collar shape. Then, next is pinning my piece to the collar, right sides facing each other, and after you stitching it down with your sewing machine, you're done. and voila, you're finished. If I had to change anything, I would add more support beneath the tan chest strap to uplift my boobies just a bit more, but it turned out great otherwise and I was pretty comfortable wearing her. Let me know what other My Hero character you'd like to cosplay in the comments, and thanks for watching.